You have the indomitable spirit of the universe buried inside your soul. The only thing you need to do is set it free, let it burn, guide the world, blind them with your light. Hello everyone, my name is Anangsha Alamyan and welcome back to my channel. Today is International Women's Day and I wanted to celebrate the amazing, badass, inspiring women in my life that I know personally. And I wanted to share their stories with you in a way that they can help you. And in this series of interviews with inspiring women, my first guest is one of my best friends from college, and she's definitely the smartest, most talented, and one of the most inspiring women I have ever had the privilege to meet. Her name is Debanjana Gupta. She did her bachelor's in engineering from NIT Silchar, her master's in engineering from IIT Delhi, and she cracked the UPSC Engineering Services exam. And currently, she's an IES officer working at Survey of India. And in this interview, Debanjana is going to share with us some tips about what it takes to crack the Engineering Services exam, what it means to be a woman in a government job, and what it means to make the transition from undergraduate to post graduation, and what it means to be a woman in technology, and how is the same world different for both men and women. So, without further ado, let's welcome Devanjana to this inspiring and super informative interview. Hi, Devanjana, or I should call you Debu because we have known each other for 10 years. So, hi, Debu. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi Anansha, glad to be here.
So we've already had a introduction to you, but for everyone who's listening, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. I'm Debanjana Gupta. I'm from Nagaon, Assam. I did my graduation from NIT Silchar, followed by post graduation from IIT Delhi. After clearing Engineering Services Examination 2017, I have joined Survey of India, Department of Science and Technology, and right now I'm posted in Bangalore.
That's so inspiring. I mean, even in college, we are one of the most inspiring people I knew, and I'm so happy that we are doing
Oh
this.
my God.
So, they
I'm also really very happy.
so it's always this perception among people that civil engineering is not for girls. Usually they say in India that ladkiyan civil nahi leti. So, what was your motivation behind choosing this branch to do your bachelor's in engineering?
Actually, this particular question, and why did you go for civil engineering? This question, I've came across of this question to almost all my interviews till now. Whether campus placement or MTech during MTech admissions or even during engineering service interview also. But I think for the first time in life, I'm going to speak the truth. Why did I go for civil engineering? And to be honest, I have a family of engineers, and most of them are civil engineers. And they finally ended up being in construction companies or in corporate sector, and some of them are actually in government sector as well, both state and central. So from the very beginning, I had kind of a good idea about what are the career options I can have once I complete civil engineering. A very diversified one actually. So that's why I was clear that if I go for private sector, I'll end up like my bhaiya or my chacha, and if I go with the government sector, I'll end up like my mama. So those things were pretty much clear, and that was something which for which I was very much uh, confident that okay, civil if I take civil engineering, my life is like gonna be like this, and so yeah, that's why I went for it. I also got a lot of objections from my family that whether I'll be able to do good in this or not, but till now pretty much I've been doing okay. So yeah.
I mean, that's a very interesting and very honest answer. And I'm just curious to know what other answers did you give, or what other variations of this answer did you give in other interviews?
Oh, in the interviews, during the interviews, I was very much inspired when I saw the bridges and the roads and the big, skyscrapers. And I always wanted to be the one who is behind the project, who is leading the project or something of that sort, which is not completely a lie. It is true as well, but probably that I have realized after I joined civil engineering, not before that. While studying, when I got to know that okay, this is how a bridge should be designed, this is how a building should be designed, and so much of thought process are there while even planning the entire floor plan and all everything. After that only I realized the level of effort that is required to first build even a two-story building also. And once it is built, the level of satisfaction that an engineer gets once he sees his baby standing, in the available for everyone to use. Same goes for the bridges or the national highways or roads, any kind of a project, civil engineering project. So yes, that was a variation during my interviews.
Wow, it's very inspiring. I think we should do something about interview tips also, because that's something probably many people might not have thought of.
Really,
It's really interesting. So, in college, because most people discourage girls from, not discourage, but they are afraid of take girls taking up civil engineering. So, in our batch at NIT Silchar, we had about 100 students. Out of them, only five were girls. So, I just want to know, hear it from you. How was your experience like in college, and how did this gender ratio, which is very skewed, how did this impact your experience in college?
um, yeah, our gender ratio, particularly in civil engineering, was 1:19. So it was really a skewed one. Uh, to be frank, I actually struggled a bit, especially during my first few semesters, particularly the first 1 year when, if you remember, we had two groups for the lab classes, and I was the only girl in the first group. So that was a very uncomfortable time in my life. But as I said, that it just lasted for 2 3 semesters, and slowly and it improved. But I had to put a lot of effort for the thing to change, and I will not blame my classmates also for not making me feel comfortable, because they were also, it was the first probably first time away from family, first time into civil engineering ka lab chal raha hai and all those things. And then for many of them, maybe they have, for the first time, they are actually studying in a co-ed institution also. So a lot of factors were there. I will not blame them, and I will not blame myself. Definitely I won't victimize myself, but the thing is that it was pretty difficult in the first few semesters, but slowly steadily things changed. And by the time we reached our final semesters, all of it, like, we cried in farewell, and we were really very sad and all those things happened. But yeah, it was a little bit difficult in the beginning.
That's true. I mean, even in like this, the same for me. The first few semesters were difficult, but later on, we became such good friends with everyone that it was difficult to say goodbye, and we cried
Exactly.
everything. So yeah, obviously, it's not fair to blame the guys, because no, at that age, no one really knows how to treat another person, right? We make mistakes
Exactly.
a lot. So,
We are
uh,
away from our family, so we really, there were a lot of new things that were happening in our life at that time, a lot of changes to adapt to. So
So, like during your college, are there any things that you felt that because you are a woman, you have to work twice as hard, but the guys, they have it easy? During your college times, was there any experience like this?
during my college time, not exactly as say, I mean, twice as hard means from the point of view that okay, I was all alone in my lab group, so I had to do all the hard work alone. I mean, whether the observations, the calculations, lab notebook maintain and everything, where the guys, they are just simply grouping up, and in their hostel at night they are just getting together and finishing their work. They are dividing the whole assignment among themselves, whereas I have to do all the things alone, because at, initially there was no partner was available for me even to talk to. So yeah, the small differences were there, but working hard. I can tell one thing in this respect is that I had to work hard to prove myself that I am also as good as you are, and I'm also as deserving as you guys are to be in the same class or sharing the same notes or sharing the same lecture and everything. So because people think that they are like the girls have come here, all the girls have cleared the exam. Suppose in engineering, at that time it was AIEEE as well as ITJEE, not a combined JEE as such. So people have the girls have cleared the exam just because they have good memorizing skills. So they have got it all because of chemistry. Chemistry ratta maar ke aa gaye, exam mein mara, and now they are here. But actually they are not suitable enough for engineering, especially civil mechanical engineering. There are a lot of where the chemistry doesn't find its way at all, or something of that sort. So in those kind of cases, like I remember there was one subject in our first year that was engineering mechanics. So I had I didn't have any intention to really prove myself at that point of time, but looking at the behavior of my fellow classmates, I was like, I need to tell them that I didn't come here only on the basis of chemistry. I was equally good in physics, I was equally good in mathematics, and that's why I'm here. And that was a kind of a proof, but other than that, I really didn't have any problem during my college time.
I think that's very important point that you said, because even I have faced the same. It's not just for the entrance examinations, even in your semester exams, if you are a girl and you get good marks, people always have this concept that girls, they get good marks because they memorize stuff and they don't know the concepts, as if girls can't be good engineers,
Exactly.
which doesn't really make any sense. To be an engineer, you need your brain, and your brain isn't connected to your
It doesn't
gender
matter.
in any way, right? So that's one like major misconception I feel
It
people
is
have about women in engineering. Like you must have faced a lot, like
definitely.
because you are our branch topper, and you also got the silver medal. So I think you must have had your fair share of people calling you this for your telling that you have memorized stuff and topped the exams, right?
Yeah, actually, in this regard, I can share one anecdote. Uh, One of my very good friends is actually from a different branch, but he was in the same hostel as that of the other guys in my civil engineering batch. So I remember him telling me a story that at night he went to one of our batchmates' room and asking them कि यार कितना पढ़ रहा है छोर, and he was like कि पहले तू अपने उस दोस्त को बता to stop studying. She's always studying, she's always into the books and gulping everything, and then she is making our life hell because all the pointer system is relative in nature. So because of her putting so much of effort into studying, we all had to suffer, and something of that sort. And the next day, my friend came and saying that everyone has a complaint against her. I was like, I won't say don't study at all, but a limited amount. I'm not always into the books, first of all. And the second thing is that in our, like, in civil engineering also, we have subjects like strength of materials or structural analysis, fluid mechanics, which requires a great deal of understanding, a great deal of logic and concepts and all these things to solve the numericals, to solve the problems and everything. And just by mugging it up will not uh, is not helpful for fetching the marks. You have to understand the concepts, and that is how we have also come through. You are also a 9 pointer overall, like 9.5 point, I think. So that is like something which people took a little bit of time to understand. It eventually came, but it was a conception which was there, misconception which was there with them for initial few semesters. That is for sure.
And we like you and I, we had rooms that were quite nearby, and I know that you don't study all the time because you were involved in so many other things. You sang, you danced, you did art, you did these amazing paintings, and you were part of so many other clubs, right? And you were always like, whenever we went to your room, you were always doing something or the other. Only during the exams we used to study so much, right? Otherwise, it was
We used to
always
study only during the exams, or if some kind of an assignment is there which is due, something like that. And that is the only time
in college.
we
It's
look
mostly like socializing or doing something
in our
else.
books. That's the only time.
That's very true. So, okay, so I want to ask you about your story after college. So you did your masters from IIT Delhi, right? So what was the experience like shifting from bachelor's to masters to a different college in a different state, such a reputed institute? How was the experience like? And do you think that because you are a woman, did it change? Like, was it different for you in any way compared to your male counterparts?
My shifting from, like, first of all, the difference between BTech and MTech, I would tell that MTech is like a more, we have little bit, we have grown up and it's a matured stage. And we are more concentrated towards our studies and our thesis. um, I won't say that the student life is over, the student life fun is over, it is still there, but it has come with a little bit of responsibility as well. I mean, our props are giving us additional assignments, we have to do the teaching assistantship also. So that was the major difference that I felt during my BTech as well as MTech uh, time. Secondly, between NIT and IIT, I would say that NIT Silchar, one of the biggest issue that I had during my stay there was our hostel in time, 7:30.
Terrible. That's really, I hate it.
That was one major problem.
Okay, for
It
those,
was,
I'm just clarifying it for the people who don't know.
yeah, yeah.
So in NIT Silchar, we had a crazy strict entry time that we had, no matter what we were doing, what projects were involved in, we had to be back at our hostel by 7 p.m. in winters and 7:30 p.m. in summers. So even if you're reading in the library or eating something or planning to eat out or doing some project, you have to come back. You have no issue, no option. And if you are late, the guards at the gate, they write your name down, and it's really terrifying because it might go to the warden, and you don't know what might happen after that. So it was not there
Very
for the
fine.
boys; it was only there for the girls.
It was only for the girls, and not only just lab or library, there were so many constraints that happened because of this end time. For, like, we had some friends in our batch who were very interested in sports, in playing. They can't go and play in the indoor stadium for a time more than 7:30. They have to come back by 7:30 at any cost, no matter how interesting the match has become, or whether they want to practice, they want to enhance their skills, they cannot do that. Then there are instances where if there is a concert or if there is any kind of a program that is happening, all the girls, they will be like, just like a, herd of cattle. They have to come together, go together past 7:30. And sometimes you have to leave the concert also because our in time will not, it's not like that we are, like, we don't have any restriction over our entry time. No, it is just extended from 7:30 to some, like, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. But once it is 10 o'clock, no matter if the concert is over or not, you have to come back. And similarly, if you want to, think that, okay, we'll take a break and we'll go out from the campus and we'll have dinner outside and come back. No, we don't have even that option available at that time. So, and even I remember in our training placement cell also, we didn't have any girl over there during our batch. Till our batch, we didn't have any girl representing the training and placement cell, because those guys have to be there in the cell for a longer um, time at night, contacting the companies to come over and conduct the placements and everything. So although we might have better representatives who could have fetched better companies and better opportunities for the entire batch, but we couldn't because of this silly constraint. So that was not there in IIT Delhi. It was I remember the very first day when I went and I asked the guard कि दीदी कितने बजे तक वापस आना है, and he was like जब मन चाहे. She was like so casual, why are you asking this silly question? Whenever you like, you just come back. And I was like, I got a shock of my life, and I was like, okay, so I can stay out as much as I can. And that actually helped me because while preparing for engineering service, I prepared for engineering service during my MTech days, and I used to study in the central library, and there was no constraint about the time, so I could. And I'm a person who who is very much active during the night hours. I don't know for what reason, but it is, and my mind works the best during the night hours. So I could easily be there in the central library and study till 3 o'clock, not 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and then come back to the hostel. There is no one to answerable to and no restriction, nothing like that. So that was a very big difference I got from NIT to IIT. NIT Silchar to IIT Delhi. I won't specifically generalize NIT IIT wala thing.
I agree with that 100% because I also did my master's in IIT Guwahati and it was same because
Yeah.
we had absolute freedom to go wherever we want and there the library stays open till 2 a.m. and during exams it's open 24 hours. So if you want to study for late night, it's okay. You can go and you can make other plans, play sports or do whatever you
You
want.
have got IIT Guwahati. Have got such a beautiful
Yeah.
campus. Going into the hostel also, hostel rooms also.
So
So
that was one major.
that was a major difference.
And like you said, MTech is different because people are more involved in their own work, right? Especially in the second
Yeah.
year. In BTech, you are more connected with your classmates because you're in this together. But in MTech, everyone has different projects. So especially in the second year, people are more involved with their own work and their own professor and not with the other students so much. But
Yes,
still,
that is also there because there won't be any classes. It's all about the thesis. There is no
yeah,
class anymore, so you don't get to meet your friends unless until you make a plan. So those things are there, and actually, um, during in MTech you have better clarity of what you want to do. In BTech, we are still exploring. We're still exploring whether we want to study, go for higher studies, whether we want to end up in a private job, whether we want to write exams and go for government jobs. So still exploring the options which we have right now. But in MTech, we have got a better clarity that okay, this is how we are going to shape our career. So
yeah, and I also think that you have more freedom in MTech because in BTech you have to do what the profs tell you. But in MTech, you have the option of choosing your own project. And if you don't agree with whatever the professor is saying, you have the freedom to actually suggest your own opinions, which I felt was really
hmm,
interesting. Because in BTech, it's not possible to say anything against the professor because you are scared what might happen, right? But MTech gives you more
yes,
freedom. That's why people they get out of MTech and they explore several different options, right? They go for PhD abroad, maybe they take up teaching positions. So it helps us
yes,
really develop ourselves as people and as students, as researchers, right?
definitely.
How did this switch from academics to engineering services happen? Did you always have a plan? And how did did this change over time, or was it always your plan to become an engineering, like go for engineering services?
To be honest, no, it was never like a plan to even go and write this exam. But what I was very much sure was that I want to end up in a job. I don't wanted to go for academics. That was very much clear from day one that maybe academics is not my cup of tea. I want to go and have a full-fledged job. Job in the sense it could be anything. It could be private. It could be government. But the reason I chose engineering service examination was because, as I said, that one of my relative was already there, and I had his example of what kind of work he was involved and what kind of respect he got out of that of his service, and even after his retirement how he is going. So I had that example right there in my family, so that was one of the major motivation. And secondly, I was in Delhi, and in Delhi, even if you don't plan for it, looking at other people in and around you, it will, passively, it will affect you to at least think about appearing once in the kind of ESC or CSE, any kind of examination. So yeah, this is how the switch happened.
That's very true. So, and then uh, after preparing for your engineering services, during your MTech only, you qualified the exam, right? So, can you tell us a little bit more about the experience? Like, how was it? How did you prepare? How did you feel when the results were declared and the rest of the journey before you joined your job?
Okay, so I was preparing for engineering services during my MTech days. Many people think that it was very difficult to manage both, but it was actually not. As you said, that we had a lot more freedom when it comes to MTech, while where our thesis should, which route the thesis should take, we have equal say on that. In fact, more say on that. So when I had the control over my academics at that point of time, I managed my time schedule accordingly. I chose such a topic which will not require my involvement, or which I can do which I can do anytime, anywhere. I did for some like experiment based project. I went for a more analytical one. So this is how I manage my timings. That since I can do whenever I can carry on with my MTech work wherever and whenever I want. So I arrange my daily routine accordingly. Studies were pretty easier there because I had a group of friends who were doing the same thing. So group study was there. It was very much effective. And then on a like weekly basis, we used to go and appear for mock tests, which was again very much helpful for us to see where we stand or where our preparation stand, how much additional effort we need to do in which particular subject we are a little bit lagging behind, and all these things happen all through during the weekly mock tests. So I remember it was my third semester. It was the third semester, in month of October, when we got the results. The final results came out, and I got to know that okay, I'm through. I have a government job, permanent one, and my marks in these 2 semesters are not going to affect it anyway. It's completely independent. And so then they were divided. My professors were divided on for this decision of mine. Some of them they were very supportive. They were like, oh, congratulations, we will come to meet you, and something of that sort. And then there were some professors who were like, they are like senior professors, and they are very much what I would say, for them academics is the best kind of a profession you can ever have. So they were pretty much against me. They tried to convince me not to go for it, but I was very much like, uh, I was my decision was final that I want to go there. And then but after getting the results out, when I have now 100%, I can dedicate 100% of my time for my in my intake thesis. um, I did the I exactly did the same thing. I didn't, unlike my other friends, I didn't think of appearing again for the exam. And people just try to appear and reappear to get better ranks, to get a better department. I was not like koi bhi department de do bhai. I am just bothered about getting a job. So I then dedicated my entire energy from mid third semester onwards to my project, to my thesis, and because of that, I could even publish two papers at the end of the fourth semester. And it was during the final defense that I got my appointment letter, asking me to join immediately. But I had my defense pending in coming 2 weeks, so I requested them to give me an extension. Then I finished. They agreed. I finished my MTech. I finished all the preparations required to publish the paper. I submitted everything, and then I took a break of 1 week, and then I went and joined another phase of my life. So this is how the transition happened. This is uh, how it went, how it all went.
So amazing that even after getting the results, you were able to publish two papers, because most people might think of like, and now I got ES, maybe I should prepare for civil services. But you had that clarity of mind that now
Yes,
you are.
this is there.
So I think that's a very important aspect because most people are always looking for something better, something new. But it's also very important to be happy with what you have and then appreciate it and then work on it to even make it better. Because now you can proudly say that you did your MTech with full heart and then you also got publications, which is so amazing. So,
I
like,
always show this off in my present office that I have two papers.
so, you said it's a government job. It's not just a government job. It's one of the most reputed and the best government jobs in India. So, how was your, first few days after joining it? Because you were still very young when you joined. Most people take several attempts to clear engineering services, but you were young. So, how was it different from like what was the expectation and how was the reality like?
Actually, my expectations were totally based on what my friends at that time were telling me. That it's a government job. Once you are through, it's a smooth road ahead. You need not to worry about anything. You need not to, because here our growth, our promotion is not based on our performance. It is it is, as I was reading the other day, uh, from the day one, when you are going to get your first promotion, when you're going to get your second promotion. It's all calculated. You know when you are going to get retired. So you need not to worry about your performance, or you need not to take any stress. No one can fire you and something of that sort. But when I joined, first of all, I'm just 2.5 years old in my service, and I feel like that I'm I'm still learning, and there is a lot to learn. And although yes, performance is not going to affect my growth or my lifetime here in the service, but the thing is that the work itself is so interesting that you can't help but to get involved more and more. And as I said, that I have a lot to learn even now, both technical as well as from the administrative standpoint also. um, there is so many different things which as an officer you should know, because maybe after 10, 20 years down the line, you are going to be the head of a particular office or a particular zone, or maybe the overall entire department, and you need to know how to run it. You are going to make the decisions of on behalf of the entire department. So you definitely need to know about all the pros and cons that may take place because of your decision, and for that you need to have a good knowledge about all the sectors. It could be the technical also, from human resource point of view, from accounts point of view, from development point of view, everything. So as I said, it's a lot to learn. The expectation was I'll have a very, maybe a very boring and mundane kind of a life, professional life. But the reality is that it is as exciting as any other job would be. The only difference is the perspective of the individual, whether you want to just lay back and relax, or you want to contribute towards whatever project your department is taking up.
That's so
That
amazing.
is
I
the
think that's
difference.
true. I think that's true for no matter what field you are in at life. I think that's true, right? You can either lay back and relax and just make do with what you get, or you can try to give your 100% and make it even better. Because ultimately, you will feel more fulfilled, right? Because if you are giving effort, if you see results, you will feel even better because of that.
Definitely.
That's so nice to hear. So, like
Definitely. Definitely.
it's a government office. It's one of the most respected jobs, and you are a woman. So, how has your experience been like as a woman in a government service?
My experience, like as a government employee, as a woman government employee, I have no complaints regarding the due share of respect that I expect from every individual. I'm getting that kind of a respect for being a woman, and in the government guidelines also there are a lot of things in which they are giving the preference. I won't say preference, but they are giving women all sorts of support that is required so that they can balance their personal and work life. Like we are having a 2 years of child care leave over and above the maternity leave. We are having when during the allotment of government quarters, we are having a separate ladies pool also, other than the general pool. So there are a lot of advantages that a woman has as a government service. But at the same time, there is something which we need to work on, and that is the mentality of your colleagues. Colleagues means your seniors as well as your subordinates. Like for example, I would say that when I started my service life, I was in my 20s, whereas the people who are reporting to me are mostly are in their 50s, and they probably have more service years than my age. So it was like, on your face they are very polite, they are very respectful, but at the same time they are reluctant to come and report to a young girl. I thought that initially, I thought that this is probably one struggle that all of our batchmates, all of us who are coming from the engineering service background are going to face. But I realized that no, it is not the same case with my male colleagues. This is particularly for me, that people have this inherent reluctance to come and report to me, or even to follow anything which I am instructing them to do. They are not ready to listen to me. And initially I struggled a lot. I had to go and seek the help of my immediate senior. Ki, sir, they're not listening to me, please you tell them. Something of that sort. But that was the initial stage, and slowly things have changed, and a lot are yet to change. And as I said, just like the student life here also, I had to prove my worth first, then to make them realize that I am in this position not because just I cleared one exam and came up. I came to this position because of some reason, because of my abilities, and I had to prove them once again that this is the reason why you're reporting to me. And because of that, maybe some of them have understood, and now they are. Uh, I cannot really fight with them as an officer, because at the end of the day, we have to finish the work which is allotted to me, and we can't have this kind of a hostility in a team. When we are working as a team, we cannot have this kind of a, ego problem or anything on that side that is just going to ruin it. So for that, for the sake of the entire team, I first prove to them that ask me anything you want to ask, and I can tell you all the things properly. And once they realize, they themselves are now at peace, and they are like, okay, fine, we will follow whatever you are asking me to do. The same thing happened the other way also. I'm trying to convince my senior that okay, you can trust me with this responsibility. I can do this work as good as my male counterpart would have, or even better than that. I had to prove my worth to my seniors also, that these are not gender specific roles. I mean, just because it's in house, that's why I can only I'll be better at it. And just because these are like field work and a lot of site and field involvement is required, so it cannot be given to me because I am a lady officer. No, that shouldn't be the case. And for that I had to fight, and I had to convince a lot. But yes, I was successful in doing so. And I think for all the ladies officers, all the lady IES, IPS, whoever, central services, they probably face the same thing also. And the struggle actually varies from person to person, because some have, some are pretty bold. Their personalities are such that they can handle this kind of situation. And some are like me, who are little polite in nature. For us to get it done, it took us a while, but things have changed and things are changing, and hoping that it will change for a good reason, for a good cause.
That is super inspiring. Like, even I have felt the same. Like whenever I think it's true for any woman who's in a technical job, that people always assume that you are just here because of you cleared an exam. It's
Yes.
not that you don't have knowledge, you don't deserve it. So you just have to always work extra hard to prove them that you know stuff, and that you are not just here as a decoration. You can actually add value. I think people need to understand that and not underestimate women. And I'm so happy that you are doing it successfully, and then you had the confidence to say that ask me anything, and then you earned their respect. I think men have it easy because if there is a man who is in a government job, people automatically respect him. But if it's a woman, if the first instinct is to underestimate them, and only after you
Yeah.
fight to win their respect, only then they can
Yep.
treat you with respect, which is very sad. And I hope it changes soon. So, Repu,
Actually,
like,
the thing is that maybe yeah.
no, no, please continue.
No, actually, when you start this process of changing the mindset, an attempt to change the mindset, and you think of you have to prove your worth and everything. Initially, you can put your 100%, but after a certain point of time, it's little demotivating and discouraging that why every time I have to do like this, why my other colleagues are getting it all very easily and something of that sort. But then it is also very important to realize and to understand that we are actually trying to fight a mindset which was there in our society for over centuries altogether, and we cannot change it overnight, or we cannot expect them to change it. We only have to make the effort, and like small efforts. Like if by doing something, if I can make even three people around me realize that I was right and I deserve to be where I am right now, that is also a very big achievement. And slowly steadily it will have its ripple effect, and it will definitely change the perception, but it will take time. Just we need to have some patience. We have to work all together also.
That's true. It's like, when you win a battle, it's not like you're winning it for yourself. You are actually doing a favor for the women who will come after you. Because if in the next batch, if there is a woman officer, maybe she'll be treated with respect because they
Exactly.
so it's like, we, like you and I as women, we are here because women of our mother's generation, they chose to fight the gender discrimination, right? Because of them, we are here. And maybe because of us, 20 years from now, some women,
Definitely.
maybe she'll do
100%.
even something better and maybe the world will change. So it's always a battle. And like you said, these small steps, they help a lot. So, and another thing I wanted to
Definitely.
discuss
Exactly.
with you, like not related to job or studies, but something that's very common in India, especially. Most people they assume that if you're a woman in India, you need to get married after 25 or maybe before 30. So, what is your idea? Like, what is your
Mm.
concept on this? What do you think? Is it fair? Because men don't have that pressure on them. They are allowed to, pursue their career, and then once they decide to settle, they can settle. But people believe that women, if they cross 30, they are no longer, of marriageable age. So, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, they have this perception like if you don't get married by 30, uh, then it will be difficult for you to conceive. Basically, that is the most important issue. Ki how will we get our grandchildren? They are always like that.
That's
But
true.
fortunately, I belong to that part of India which is very much liberal, and which have given the daughters the choice to say no, that I don't want to get married now. I want to get married after 5 years, or want to get married once I'm done with my studies, or once I'm done with my if there is a certain goal that I want to achieve, even in my job during my professional life also. Once I get it, then I'll settle. Because it is true that once the kind of effort that you can put in your initial uh, stage in your professional life is the scope is much more. And once you get settled and when you have certain responsibilities, uh, I won't say it is impossible, but it is difficult. And when I'm getting an option that I will finish it off first, and then I will concentrate and get my focus into getting married and getting settled, then I should have that option with me. And I'm really very proud that the region where I belong to has given this choice to their daughters, and that's why I personally am not facing this issue right now. That I need to get settled or any kind of pressure whatsoever, which is surprising to many of my colleagues here. How can you aren't your parents worried about it or something? And they're like, no, you can go and talk to my parents. They're staying with me. They are all cool. They're not worried about it at all.
Yeah, that's
So
very true. Like,
that
uh,
perception.
people from this part of the country, the northeastern part, they are very liberal, yeah, because even my mother, she got married when she was 29. So I don't have any issues now. Right now, no one is pressuring me. And I'm very grateful because so many of my friends from different parts of the country have already got married. And, I don't think that you should define marriage by a number, by an age. I think you should only marry when you really feel ready, financially, emotionally, mentally. When you feel ready, only then you should marry. Otherwise, I don't think that, already, there's so many people are already putting the pressure on their daughters. And I think this is important to understand that they also need to have a say in whatever, because marriage is a very big decision, right? People
Very
worry
big
so much
decision.
about choosing their career, but people are like, शादी कर लो एक साल में, इसी साल में शादी करना है. And then that is not the right way to go about it. I think it's important to
इसी साल में शादी करना है because your sick दादाजी wants to see the because you're bedridden दादाजी wants to see the face of your husband and because of that stage you need to get married. So these kind of excuses are there. I mean, Dadaji, you have lived your life. Now it's my turn. So don't force me.
that is so amazing.
So
Yeah. I have also heard this logic that parents say that this year we are getting retired, so we want you to get married before we retire. So thankfully, my parents are cool with that because,
because we can and then and
yeah, please continue what we're saying.
and then yeah, and then there are pressure like suppose I have some of my cousins who are younger than me. So that kind of pressure is like तुम्हारी शादी जब तक नहीं होगी, your even your sisters are not able they are not able to get married. I was like, why? Who has asked them? They are even if first of all they are my cousins, and even if they are my own siblings also, they have the if they feel like they are ready to get married, they have they should get all the freedom to get married before they enter one. I mean, you should not put that kind of restriction. You should not pressurize me for that also. My life decision should be because of based on what I feel, or at most based on what my parents feel. But no other factor, no societal pressure, or no opinion of my extended family should influence my life choices or my life decisions. That is something that we have to be very strong, like strongly opinionated about. So,
Exactly. And like it's not for us, it's a little bit different because we're already working. But so many women, they are, right after college, they are forced by their families to get married. I also think that it's so important for
yeah.
any person, man and woman both, to be at least a little bit financially independent before you get married. Otherwise, you're just dependent on one person, and then you have to, always ask them for money for doing even small things like ordering something online. And I think that's a very difficult situation to be in. So some kind of job or some kind of earning is very important, in my opinion.
Very important. It could be anything. It need not to be, like it need not to be a government or a private or an MNC or PSU, anything of that. Or it could be a small, very small scale business of your own also. Like there are many of my friends who wanted to get settled early. It was their choice, first of all. That they got married, they have their children also, and now they are very good in say in artworks, and now they are creating their artworks and they are selling online. They have got this option. They are cooking and then they are flaunting their baking skills and all these things. There are like lot many options for like as a woman you have, and you need to explore that first. You need to decide it first that okay, these are the options available. You need to have a plan basically, because whatever you choose now, especially when it comes to your career or when it comes to your life partner, whatever you choose, you're going to stay with them for the rest of your life. So you need to make wise decisions regarding it, and you have to plan at least till your mid 30s that what exactly your life should look like. So
That's so
these are all important. And financial independence is very important for women. Very, very important nowadays.
absolutely. And because today is International Women's Day, I wanted to ask you this question that what are three things that you wish every teenage girl knew? Or if I could phrase it in another way, what are some things you wish you knew when you were a teenager
Okay.
regarding being a
Three,
woman or anything in general?
yeah, in general, I would like to say that, okay, first of all, regarding career, I would like to say that I wish I not as a teenager, but during the final years of my engineering. I think you will also agree with it that the kind of environment where we were studying, we had a little to no uh, idea about higher studies a lot, like GATE, how to prepare for GATE, or exams like that sort of, or even CAT also in that case. So I wish there could have been some kind of a guidance, some kind of, at least some way out that, okay, you can browse and you can go to these websites. So these are the things that people do while, if there was some kind of guidance even to tell us that, okay, this is the difference between getting a job right after graduation and getting a job after finishing your post graduation, whether it be MTech or MBA or anything. So I wish I had that kind of an option during that time. And as a teenager and as a woman, one thing that I would like to say is that uh, we, I think this is the problem with all the Indian girls, that even though I studied in co-ed institutions all through my life, but I had little knowledge about the other gender. And by other gender, I mean to say, there is always some kind of a curiosity that people have, and especially when we hit the adolescent age. At that time, we do have a lot of curiosity, and we don't have much of a scope to discuss it about. Maybe at max with our teachers in school, and that also if there's a lady teacher. But other than that, we and our friends, our group of girls, even our mom are also not very much comfortable talking about those things. Uh, and that curiosity often leads to some kind of mistakes that teenagers make down the line. What happened with me was like, as I was discouraged from the very beginning to talk about all those, hush hush things. It continued for a long time, and probably you are one of my guides who have told me some important things about life which we should have known lot before. Not, I mean, 20 is not an age to know about your own self. So these things were there. I wish that during school as well as in my home also, I would have got, if I could have got more freedom to talk about, uh, talk about these things, to talk about
I agree. I
our
think
body, to talk about sex, to talk about puberty, to talk about menstrual cycle, to talk about all these things. I hope I could have got that.
that's very true. And sex education, if you tell someone that we need sex education in our schools, most adults will be like, no, बच्चों को ये सब सिखाओगे क्या? Which is such a wrong mindset, because if you don't teach it to the
Yeah.
children, they will be ignorant till they are teenagers, and teenagers have all these hormones, and they are very likely to make some mistake, which they might regret all their life. And like in the absence of sex education, people, what do? They watch porn or they read some books and they learn about sex, right? So I just remember heard it in some video that learning about sex by watching porn is like learning driving by playing a video game. So would you trust the driver who learned their driving by playing a video game? So that's the same thing.
True, very true. And to be frank, I'll tell you one very big thing that uh, I'm not very proud of this fact, but I got to know about it very late in my life. When I was in my mid 20s, then only I got to know about I got the clear concept about my menstrual cycle, that when is the ovulation period on, and when you're ovulating, then this is the highest probability of getting pregnant at that time. And after a while, when the ovulation period is off, I won't say it is completely safe, but it is somewhat safer. And like that kind of a thing I got to know very late. And yes, I got to know it on time, not before anything could happen. But then this should be from in both the ends. I mean, not only girls, but boys should also know how the female body works, and the girls should also know how the male body works. Only, and this is not only about, for the fear that I could commit a mistake during my teenage or something of that sort. No, it is very important to lead a very healthy life, to lead a very healthy married life also. It is very important to have a clear concept about it. And yes, porn will not provide this education to you.
That's so true. You know, like most of the porn like that we see is designed for a male audience. So it's just focusing on the pleasure of the man.
Yeah.
But you know, in real life, it doesn't work like that. Real life, you have to take into account so many other things, so many other aspects of the female body before, you know, directly jumping into it, jumping into the act. So yeah, I think it's very important and it's like empowering. Sex education is not, you know, teaching children some bad things. It's actually empowering them and giving them the
No,
tools to have a better life because you are giving them the option,
the
their choices for themselves.
exactly, that is what I was about to say, that you are giving them the base on which, depending on which they'll make their choices. They'll make their decisions regarding the sex life. So that it is very important. As you said, it is pornography is all from the perspective of the like male gender, about their pleasures and all those things. And often for that, the what exactly a female body wants or what exactly it is needed, sometimes even after getting married or after having two kids, people are yet to discover.
That's very
So
true.
those things should be, very much.
Yeah, and
So
you know, in a
yes,
to have a healthy marriage, emotional compatibility is important, but sexual compatibility is also so important, right? And if a man or a woman, if they don't know their own body enough,
it is very
how will they be
important.
able to please their partner, right? So it can lead
Exactly.
to a
How will
lot
they
of
guide the other?
yeah, and it can lead to so many mental health issues also. So
You
it's
need to know
really
about your body. Yes, definitely. And you need to know about your own body to know what you exactly want to guide your partner, and you need to know about your partner's body also to make sure that the he's also happy. So both ways it is very important, and
that's
we should from a very young age, it is as important as physics, chemistry, geography.
so true, Devu, so true. You know, we should just print it out and stick it everywhere in the world because people don't understand it. We have been through it. We know the struggles, and it's so important to teach children, empower them because they are going to shape the world tomorrow. If you keep it under cover that don't talk about sex, only talk about sex after you get married, doesn't make sense at all. So I
Yes,
hope
yes,
this
yes,
changes.
that's very wrong. And it is for your own health. It is for your, you need to have a healthy, if you want to have a healthy life, and by health, I don't mean your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your sexual well-being also. You need to know about it. Definitely. Like, there is no other way out.
That's so nice and so empowering. Thank you, Devanjana. You gave us such inspiring messages and so many interesting and motivating stories. I'm sure the audience must have learned a lot. I learned a lot, and I was so inspired to, you know, ask you more questions. But we have to, you know, keep it at a particular length. So let's wrap it up now. And I would like to thank you so much for taking our time and doing this. So thank you so much, Debu, for doing this.
Thank you so much, Anansha, for calling me. It was really like I'm really honored to be a part of your video series, and I hope that our conversation, if it could even make small difference in at least one person's life, also it will be an achievement. And thank you so much for calling me and making me a part of your